Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background. What do you do right now in tech?
Of course. Hi, yeah, it's great to be here. I I've been in free software and open source for a long time. When I graduated from college, I started using a computer. I studied architecture, so buildings and urban planning, rather than software engineering. I wasn't doing much programming at all, or at all actually. So I just was in front of a computer long for many hours, and it was always complicated to acquire licenses for AutoCAD or Esri, ArcInfo, and and even after the complicated process of working with procurement at university and getting the packages, it was always painful to make the programs that they came in a box, make them do what we were supposed to be doing as researchers and newly graduated architects. So I thought that there had to be a better way. And before I graduated, I had a friend of mine who mentioned this Linux thing, and at the time I tried to use it, but I gave up because it was really complicated for me, too complicated, and I still didn't find Windows any more friendly or usable. But still, I was stuck with it. It was the professional thing that you were supposed to know how to use. Anyway, spending a lot of time with the software was complicated, and I ended up by chance discovering the GNU Manifesto and the GNU project, and that kind of a light bulb went off, and it's like, well, this looks more like the kind of science, the kind of teaching that I have received. You don't start from scratch all the time. One of my early lectures in architecture was professor of technology who told us, you young students, you are not going to be, you need to be filling up your brain with what the elders have been doing. Like walk around the town, walk around the city of Florence, try to see how other buildings have been build on top of that. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel because it's really not worth it. So that was my first exposure to free software and open source at the time. I found that very fascinating. So I started advocating for it and started putting more knowledge and more efforts into running Linux at that point, because I thought it was the right way to do it, the right way to do computing. And long story short, I ended up running the open source initiative as the executive director a few decades after that.
Do you feel that your background in like architecture, when it comes to buildings, and you mentioned urban architecture, do you think that helped or shaped or influenced how you were thinking about software and the tech industry and ecosystem?
Absolutely. I've been doing so much of the training in multidisciplinary environments, like working with social scientists, statisticians, engineers, like building engineers, civil engineers, and computer scientists too, to do to progress, to learn how to do things. Urban planning, especially, it's such a social discipline, so tied to social discipline, and this multidisciplinary approach has followed me in all of my career, like from the initial years where I was advocating for open source and free software with the Free Software Foundation Europe and Italy, to managing communities later on with companies and nonprofit organizations like the OpenStack Foundation and other groups like Funamble and Rackspace and Twitter, like many different companies that I've worked with. I've always carried that approach of trying to understand everyone, talking and trying to get into the heads of every stakeholder.
say that I'm smiling so much because we talked to Christy Nicola and he wanted to be an architect. I also wanted to be an architect, and then I ended up in IT. And both Christy and I kind of enjoy this community building and community architecture and governance and those kind of things. So to me personally, it's just so interesting to learn about everyone's career path and how these different segments that have nothing to do with tech still influence us very, very strongly.